Hi, friends. Welcome to another awesome episode of Optimizing Yourself with Francis. On today's topic, we are going to be talking about how to establish healthy boundaries. How to establish healthy boundaries. So, what is a boundary? A boundary, in simple terms, is a property line, or in this case, a personal line that establishes what you own and what you're responsible for. Simple. A property line that establishes what you own and what you're responsible for. Before we begin to delve deeper into this topic, I want to say what a boundary is not. A boundary is not a wall or a fence that locks a person in and prevents them from having healthy and wholesome relationships. That's not what we're talking about. A healthy boundary is also not a list of do's and don'ts where you have defined the do's and don'ts and you're just waiting for who will cross the line, to say you crossed my boundary and, pounce on them. That's not also what we are talking about on today's topic. So, as we defined, a boundary is a property line or access. Now we're talking of personal boundaries, so healthy personal boundaries. We are talking about your personal line and access that you own and that you're responsible for. So now that you know that you own it and you're responsible for it, let's look at some of the things that will help you gain further understanding and know how to take proper ownership and self-responsibility to help you optimize your property or your life as it applies in this case, and optimize your effectiveness in simple terms. So we have a land surveyor, a professional who comes to survey a land and establish the property access, property lines to tell the new buyer that this is yours. So based on the land surveyor's professional expertise and establishment of that access, you can now say that this is the boundary that belongs to ABC. So when they've established the boundary that belongs to them, they can now plan based on having acquired ownership of that space. So when you've acquired ownership for your life, so I'll keep interposing it as it applies in this case. Now that you have acquired ownership of your life based on you owning it, knowing it's your life, right? Maybe based on personal beliefs, spiritual beliefs, the belief that God created and gave you your life, and now this is yours. He's mapped the access and he said this is yours, right? Now you know that this is yours. You can now plan based on the owner of this space. The new buyer can decide, I want to build a property here or a house here, I want to farm here, I want to garden here. It's all the owners to plan. Of course, he can get professional input and advice, but he's going to take ownership for what he eventually makes of that property. No one's going to say, I didn't want to paint it yellow. The neighbor or the other person is the one that forced me or came and painted it yellow for me. I didn't want a yellow house. No, it's yours. You can take the input and the advice, but establishing your boundary makes you take full ownership for what goes on within that space and now within your life. So that's what healthy boundaries is going to help you to. Secondly, when the professional surveyor or the professional who is a surveyor establishes that access or property line and hands it over to the buyer, It helps the buyer know what they are responsible for. If you live in an estate setting, or a dynamic setting, you know that within your estate they'll say you have to mow your lawn, you have to keep the environment clean, you have to do that, basic maintenance standards. So establishing that access and giving it to the new owner makes them know what they are responsible for maintaining. So that is also what a healthy boundary makes you know. I'm responsible for maintaining my mental balance. I'm responsible for my personal growth and development. I'm responsible for keeping is at least a little bit of stability within my space. It makes you take responsibility for what happens within your boundaries. Now that you know that this is what I own this and I'm responsible for it, you will feel less guilty telling your neighbor who comes to visit you, please, can you put off your shoes outside? My preference is to walk into the house without shoes. Now you see where the other side of the boundaries come in. Now that you own this space and you're responsible for keeping it clean or for keeping it sane or for maintaining a particular standard, you will not feel so guilty to communicate that this is either my preference. Oh, I really like your contribution or your suggestion, but my preference would be this, or my preference will be that. The way you don't feel guilty telling a neighbor, please don't throw litter into my compound to help it make it easier for me to maintain and clean. You shouldn't also feel guilty to tell your neighbor, your friend, your family, and all the people that you enjoy wholesome relationships with around you, that even though we have this beautiful relationship, I'll prefer that you don't throw in litter into my life to help clean it, to help maintain it. Or I'll prefer one or two standards to help you take responsibility for maintaining your physical and mental balance, your overall well-being, to help you take responsibility for maintaining whatever it is decided that is important to you as the new property owner. Secondly, it will also help you know that it's okay to say no and not explain it. So, as the owner of a property, and my friend comes to tell me, I think it would be nice to build a bungalow in front of your farm. I'll say, sounds like a good idea, but I think it's no. I don't even need to explain further. And of course, my neighbor is not going to feel bad because it's my property. But somehow in our personal lives, we find it so difficult to say no within our property line that we own and we are responsible for. So when you understand what the healthy boundaries, the way it is, it's not going to impact your relationship because we are relational being. It was just the way the surveyor establishing the land access doesn't impact the buyers' relationships, but it helps them know what they own and what they are responsible for. Until next time, friends, stay tuned and have an awesome week. Bye, guys.